Welcome back to another episode of With a Grain of Salt. I am your host, Isaiah Salter, and I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in for yet another week. Another With a Grain of Salt episode. Y'all already know the vibes. This week's episode is titled Life is Spiritual, right? Life is spiritual. I've been having this conversation with a couple of people over the last couple of weeks about how, I've been thinking about this idea that, some people say, oh, I'm spiritual or I'm not spiritual or this and that, whatever it may be. But I'm starting to realize that everybody is spiritual because life is inherently spiritual. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. The thing is, it's not, are you spiritual or not? It's, are you in tune or not, right? Everybody is spiritual. It's just, are you in tune? And I think, when you can shift your perspective on spirituality to understand that life is spiritual, everything in this life is spiritual. It's just about being in alignment. It's just about being in tune. That's it, right? I mentioned this last podcast, you are a radio, and on a radio, every radio has stations on it. It's just, are you in tune to the right station? That's all. But it's not some people are a radio and some people aren't. It's not some people are spiritual and some people aren't. Everybody is spiritual. Everything is spiritual. It's just, where's the alignment at? Where's the tuning, right? So I kind of want to give a perspective and dive into the concept of life being spiritual, spirituality with this episode. For me, I've learned that navigating, spirituality is incredibly personal, and it's something that we need to talk about from a more open perspective, if that makes sense. So that's what we're going to do with a grain of salt. You already know. So point number 1, spirituality is a personal path, not a prescription. One of the biggest misconceptions about spirituality is that it must follow a fixed doctrine or tradition. But spirituality is not about conforming. It's about connecting. Your connection with God, source, whatever you want to call it, whatever language you want to use, is deeply personal and always unfolding in unique ways. And I want to touch on that language part because why do we use language? We use language to understand things better. That is the purpose of language, to understand things better. So what you need to understand about spirituality is there's a multitude of different languages out there. And depending on who you are, how you think, your perspective, right, your personality, certain languages are going to resonate more than others, right? But language isn't about right or wrong. It's about understanding. So whatever language helps you understand your spiritual path, your spiritual journey better, that's what works for you, and that's what resonates with you, right? I think a lot of times, like it said, one of the biggest misconceptions is spirituality must follow a fixed doctrination or a fixed doctrine, or tradition, right? But spirituality is open, right? It's flow. It's very unique and personal, right? And so you have to figure out what works for you and leave what doesn't. And it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just about what's right for you. That's it. It says there's no correct way to be spiritual. What speaks to one person's soul might not speak to another's, and that is okay. Your path can include silence, music, prayer, movement, solitude, deep relationships, anything. It's yours to discover. It is yours to discover. Your path can include a multitude of different things depending on who you are and what resonates with you. So I've learned that, when you're cultivating your own path, your unique path, you have to be willing to be okay with figuring out what works for you and what doesn't, even if it doesn't align with other people. And that is okay, right? Because your journey is for you. It's not for everyone. You have to do what feels aligned and right for you. Unapologetically be yourself, right? It says trying to fit your spiritual experience into someone else's box can actually disconnect you from your truth. Your journey starts when you stop asking for permission and start listening to your intuition. Yeah, when you try to fit your spiritual experience into somebody else's box, that's where real disconnection comes from. That is where real disconnection comes from. When you stop asking for permission and you start listening to your intuition, that's where real freedom and connection comes from. Right? We live in a society where it's right or wrong, this or that, right? And so we grow up thinking that if our understanding of life doesn't fit in the box that society has created, then it's wrong. Then something's not right. But you have to understand that society, the box that society has created, it's been created to limit you, right? And to keep you at a lower vibration and to keep you stuck in a very limited way of thinking and living so that you can be controlled in that box, right? So when you want to break free from that, you have to be willing to stop asking for permission and start listening to your intuition. You don't need to ask for permission to follow what feels right, for you, to follow your heart, to follow what feels aligned in your soul. You don't need to ask for permission. You just need to listen to your intuition. And the more you listen to your intuition, the more you're going to feel like you're moving in a more authentic and aligned way, because your intuition is one of the gateways to living authentically. You just have to listen to it. But so often, because we're constantly listening to everything outside of ourselves, we're allowing all of these systems and conditionings of the external world to program us into being a certain way. That intuition that's there to guide us, we just don't listen to it, and it, dimmens over time, right? But at any given moment, at any moment in time, you could tap back into that intuition. And at first, yes, because you haven't listened to it, in the past, you're gonna have some resistance, right? It's not gonna be the easiest thing, but if you just keep leaning into it with grace, like the last episode, with love for yourself, right? With open-mindedness, you're gonna start to figure out things about yourself. You're going to start to experience certain things in this life that are really going to open you up. And when you open yourself up, that is when life really starts to, work for you. Truly, really starts to work for you. But remember that your authentic journey really starts when you stop asking for permission and start listening to your intuition. All right. You have all the answers within you. You have all of the answers within you, and anybody or anything that tries to tell you that you need to get something or figure things out outside of yourself, I feel like that's a deception. Truly, I feel like that is the deception, because I think God has blessed each and every one of us with everything that we needed within ourselves. It's just about turning your gaze inward. And that inward journey is one of the most toughest, difficult, but eye-opening journeys you'll ever go on. And when you start to really lean inward and you start to realize that I have all of these things already within me, you're going to stop being so quick to search for things in the external world, and you're going to start tapping into what you already have internally, inherently, right? Understand that you were born, like this physical body is just a container to hold your soul, and your soul is connected to God, right? Your soul is connected to God. And when you turn your gaze inward and you start to tap into what you have internally, you start to tap into your soul, into your spirit, and you allow that to guide you in life, you're never going to feel without, ever, right? The only reason we go without, the only reason we search for things externally is because we have forgotten, we've been programmed to believe that our identity, our value, our worth, the answers are in the things of the world. Because if you actually knew what you had internally, if you actually knew you had everything within yourself, then all of these systems in place that, are over us and try to control us, they would lose its power, because the only power that these systems have are the power that we give it. And the reason we give these things so much power is because we have placed all of the value and all of our worth in the external thing, all of our peace in the external thing. Right? And so we go to these things, we search in these things, we dwell on these things externally, trying to fill that void internally, but not understanding that the answers are already within, right? So if you just turn your gaze inward, you're going to stop leaning so much on the external world and start understanding I have everything right here. I have everything right here. And that's very liberating. That's very liberating. That's real liberation, right? Real liberation is not an external thing. It's an internal thing, right? We talk about revolutions, right? Real revolution in the world is going to happen when people are liberated internally, right? When people are liberated internally. It may seem like a lot of people are free externally, but internally they're trapped. And that's one of the biggest things that we overlook in society. A lot of people, they may be, not in jail, not in prison, but internally they're trapped. Real liberation is internal. When you remember who you are, when you tap into source, when you start to cultivate the spirit part of you, the God part of you. That's liberation. And what are you liberating from? You're liberating from your attachment to the things of the world, right? That's why Eastern philosophy and in Eastern ways of living is so powerful to me, because one of the main things that they talk about is detachment, right? Detaching yourself from the things of this world. If you've ever watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, you know that's something that the air people did amazing. They detached themselves from the world, right? And when you're in a state of detachment, you're allowed to flow because you're not attached to anything, right? And how do you move into a state of detachment? You have to learn how to turn your gaze inward and start to tap into the things you already have. Because when you start to tap into the things you already have and you become whole internally, you're going to stop being so quick to attach yourself to things externally. And that is how you become detached from outcomes, from people, right? From situations, from destinations, from achievements, from materialistic possessions, right? Because none of these things can bring you your wholeness, can become your identity, because you are already rooted in the truth within. Amit Ray says, spirituality is not about adopting more beliefs and assumptions, but uncovering the best already within you. So true. Right? It's not about adopting more beliefs and assumptions, right? We've done that enough. You know, growing up in our society, you're conditioned and programmed to think and believe certain things, right? But true spirituality is just about uncovering what you already have within. True spirituality is about uncovering what you already have within. Remember, everybody is spiritual. Life is spiritual. It's just we've been deceived, we've forgotten, we've been distracted. And, you know, it's just about remembering what you already have, remembering your inherent nature. Your inherent nature is you are a spiritual being having a human experience. When you remember that and you tap into that part of you, that source part of you, right? Like, you know, how the Transformers had the spark within them that, you know, made them, you know, come alive. When you tap into that spark, man, you're going to feel alive. You're going to start living for real. You're not going to just be going through the motions, right? Dreading every day that you wake up. No, you're going to start living truly, right? You are a human being, a spiritual being. Tap into your inherent being and start to live that out, right? A lot of people are searching for life in things outside of themselves, not realizing that they have all the life within them. You just have to tap into it, awaken it, and allow that to express itself in everything that you do. Come on. A practice for point number 1 is spend 10 minutes in silence each morning. Ask, what do I need to connect with today? Journal or move toward what feels authentic, not what looks spiritual, but what feels true, right? Get out of the performative mindset. A lot of times people do things because it looks good, but it doesn't really feel true to themselves, right? If spirituality or your path feels performative, feels like you're just going through the motions or just trying to fit in, take a step back and reflect on that and be like, hold on, that's not how it's supposed to feel. It's supposed to feel authentic. It's supposed to feel true. It's supposed to feel expansive. It's supposed to feel aligned. So if it's not feeling like that, then maybe I need to, you know, do a little self-audit, an internal audit, and, you know, figure out what's going on with grace and love for ourselves. Point number 2, spirituality evolves as you evolve. Just like we outgrow certain shoes, clothes, and habits, we can outgrow spiritual systems or ways of thinking. This isn't spiritual failure, it's spiritual maturity. Growth often looks like letting go, re-questioning what you once thought was sacred, and finding new truths that align with your current self. This is so true. Imagine trying to stay in the same shoe that you wore in 5th grade, and you're where you at now. Your feet would hurt, right? But that's how we treat spirituality, right? We try to stay conformed to things that once used to work for us. But as you grow, so will your spiritual journey. As you evolve, so will your spiritual journey. And sometimes you outgrow certain ways of thinking, certain beliefs, right? Certain systems. That's not spiritual failure. It is spiritual maturity. A lot of times we view outgrowing things as, oh my gosh, this is coming to an end. This is a failure, or I'm losing this thing. No, you're just outgrowing it. It's spiritual maturity. You're maturing spiritually. The same way you mature physically out of clothes, out of shoes, right, out of certain habits that you once used to do as a kid, is the same way you will mature spiritually when you have that perspective. But a lot of times, our spirituality, our perspective on spirituality and life is so fixed that we don't allow for the evolution to happen, right? And we wonder why we feel so much friction internally. We wonder why we see so much, disconnection in the world, right? Because we have so many groups of people with fixed mindsets, right? And when you have a fixed mindset, you don't allow for growth because you're fixed. And anything that is not in congruence with what you have fixed, you view as a threat, right? And literally that's what we see going on in our world. We see it in politics. We see it in religion. We see it in, economics, all of these different things. People have very fixed mindsets. And when you have a fixed mindset, you create this box, and your identity and your beliefs and everything is inside of that box. So anything that does not fit inside of that box is wrong. You view as a threat. You fear, right? You want to lessen, right? And that's why we see so much force in society. Everybody trying to force their beliefs or ideologies onto other people, when this life is not meant to feel forced. It's meant to flow. And flow means you have to be open-minded. Flow is not fixed, right? Flow is questioning things with the right intentions. You're not questioning things to take away from something. You're questioning things so that you can understand things better. You can understand yourself better. You can understand life better. You can understand somebody else better, right? But we view questioning as a threat. We view questioning as somebody trying to take us away from what we believe in, rather than viewing it as an opportunity to have a connection, to learn more, right? Come on. Remember, it's just, y'all get it. Y'all get it, man. Y'all get it. But it says, your beliefs 5 years ago don't have to be your beliefs today. Spirituality is fluid. It grows alongside your consciousness, your life experiences, and your self-awareness. So true. Spirituality is fluid. It grows as you grow, right? As you go through different experiences, as your self-awareness grows, your spirituality, your spiritual path is going to grow as well, right? But think about it. Think about it like this. What do you think this is going to cause if the way you see spirituality is fixed, right? So you have this fixed view of life. The way you see life, I'm not going to say spirituality. The way you see life is fixed, right? But you're constantly growing. You're constantly evolving. What do you think that is going to create? Internal disconnection. You are staying attached to a fixed way of thinking, a fixed belief. But on the other end of it, you're growing. You're navigating new relationships, new environments, right? And there's just this disconnection. You're like, why do things feel like off, right? Because you got to be willing to let go, right? But remember, letting go is not a loss. It's just creating space for the right things to come in. As you grow, you're going to align with different things. And one of the most important things for you to step into, those newer and aligned perspectives, mindsets, relationships, is you have to be willing to let go of the things that no longer align, right? But because we're attached to these things, we view letting go as a loss, as something is wrong, rather than understand letting go is one of the most beautiful parts of your journey. Letting go is one of the most beautiful parts of your journey, right? Because the more you let go of what no longer aligns, the more you create space for what does. And that's gonna keep happening for the rest of your life. You're constantly gonna have to let go of things, but it's just like pruning. It's just like pruning a tree, right? You got to let go of the things that no longer empower you. It says it's okay to not have all the answers. In fact, some of the most spiritual moments are when you release the need for certainty and you walk with wonder instead. So true. Some of the most powerful spiritual moments in your life will be when you release the need for certainty and you just start to walk with wonder, with a curiosity, with a childlike spirit, right? You stop trying to figure everything out and you just start to experience life. Man, when my life changed is when I really stepped away from needing to know everything and needing to be right about everything and needing to have all the certainty. And I just started to move through life with this like curious childlike spirit, curious childlike mindset. My life changed. It opened me up, and it was just like, man, what was I doing? And I don't look back at myself, in the way I used to be as like a negative thing. I'm grateful for that version of myself because it led me to, where I am now. But at the same time, you look back and you're like, man, I can't believe how, rigid I was in my thinking, how closed-minded I was without even realizing it, right? You think it's right because you've been doing it for so long and it's become such a strong part of your identity, but when you kind of, break free from that attachment and you can look back, it's like, man, I did not realize I was that fixed. I was that rigid, and it gives you a lot of perspective on life, and it helps you to, really prioritize being open moving forward. Because how are you going to allow the right things to come into your life if you're not open? How are you going to allow the right things to come into your life if you are not open? And what is one of the main ways people become closed? Attachment. Because when you attach yourself to certain things, you close off any other thing that isn't aligned with that attachment, right? And attachment is, like in Buddhism, attachment is the root of all suffering. Imagine if you're trying to, navigate and grow and evolve, but you're still attached to things that no longer align. You think that's going to cultivate peace and happiness? No, it's probably going to cultivate internal struggle and internal suffering, right? So you have to be mindful of that. A lot of people suffer every single day because they are attached to things that no longer serve them. And a lot of us aren't even mindful that we're attached. We don't even realize that's what it is, and it could be incredibly detrimental because people go their whole lives doing that, attached to ways of thinking, to beliefs, to ideologies, right? And the reason you're attached to it is because you've placed a part of your identity into that thing. And because you have placed a part of your identity into that thing, letting that thing go, you think that you're losing a part of yourself. But that's just the ego. That's just the ego masking the process of letting go with fear, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm wording that right, but like when you want to let go of an attachment, your ego views that as a threat because your ego thrives in prediction. And so your ego wants to attach itself to things externally to feel safe. And so it attaches part of your identity onto certain things. And so when you want to let go of that thing, your ego is going to shoot up all of these things like fear, doubt, insecurity to make you think it's a threat because that's what makes the ego feel safe. But with a perspective shift, you can understand that those things aren't coming up because letting go is a bad thing. They're just coming up because I'm about to step away from an attachment that I've been so rooted in for so long. And I have to, navigate this with my ego and let my ego know, hey, it's okay. Yes, you may be scared, but just trust me. Trust in the spirit. You feel me? Trust in the spirit. But just remember that it's okay to not have all the answers. Spirituality is not about having all the answers. It's about being open. It's about having a curious mindset. It's about having a childlike spirit and just experiencing life and the things that life brings you, right? But you don't need to have all the answers. And honestly, trying to have all the answers is what causes so much suffering. Trying to figure everything out all the time is what causes so much frustration, right? So one of the best things to do is to let go of your need, of your attachment to have everything figured out all the time. Let go of your need and your attachment to need to have all the answers. Let go of your need and attachment for certainty. Understand that uncertainty in the unknown, that is where magic and miracles happen. That is where magic and miracles happen. It's not really a miracle if you know how everything's going to work out, if you know what's going to happen. Usually we call things miracle when we're like taken back. We call things miracles when we're taken back and we're like, wow, oh my gosh, look at how that happened, or I can't believe that happened, right? Uncertainty, unknown, lean into it. That's where possibility lies. That's where expansiveness lies, right? Because when you're constantly going through this life trying to predict, the future based off of your past, you're living in a very rigid, contracted way of being, right? So it's not going to feel expansive. It's going to feel contracted, right? But when you step into the unknown, when you step into the realm of possibility, oh, my phone went off. When you step into the realm of possibility, you're going to feel expansive, right? Because now you're open, right? Expansiveness is open, contracted is closed. Expansiveness is open, contracted is closed. So if your life feels contracted, you're probably closed off because of attachments, because of old ways of being, because of things that, don't serve you anymore, mindsets that don't serve you anymore. If you are moving and you feel expansive, you feel like life is flowing, you're probably open. You need to lean more into that, right? You need to lean more into that. Everybody knows the saying, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Every single person is spiritual. It's just, are you in tune? Have you cultivated the awareness? That is it. But the spirituality is in us. The spirituality is in each and every one of us. Life is spiritual. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Are you in tune or not? That is it. Are you in tune or not? And how you get in tune is going to look different depending on who you are and what resonates with you, right? So follow your intuition. Try different things. Keep what works, leave what doesn't, and take life with a grain of salt. Come on. Take life with a grain of salt. A practice is, once a month, reflect on what has shifted in your beliefs, feelings, or practices. Ask, what am I being called to outgrow? What am I now open to? Let go of whatever doesn't resonate without shame. Let go of whatever doesn't resonate without shame. Let go of whatever doesn't resonate without shame, right? And before we move on to point number 3, I get questions a lot about, oh, Isaiah, what is your religion? Or, what do you believe in? Things of that nature. Me personally, I don't follow any specific religion. I'm very open-minded, as I'm sure many of you know, right? And I did grow up Christian. I grew up in church, those type of things, and I have no hate towards Christianity or any of that. I have people in my family who are still Christian. Just for me, I've had certain experiences that had led me to stepping away from organized religion and kind of, embodying a more open view of life. And I have one of my favorite things that I, have always said to myself is that love is my religion and life is the book. Love is my religion and life is the book. And that's just what works for me. That's just how I like to live my life. I really try to embody the frequency of love and allow that to express itself in everything that I do. And love is unconditional. So I don't care where you come from, what you look like, what you believe in. I love you. Truly, I love you as a human being, as a spiritual being, as a divine part of the collective conscious. Now, just because I have love for everybody doesn't mean I'm going to be around everybody. It doesn't mean I resonate with everybody. It doesn't mean I like everybody, right? But I lead with love in everything that I do, and I want to keep that at the forefront of my mind in everything that I do. And this podcast is literally about taking life with a grain of salt. There might be things I say that you don't resonate with. Leave it at the door. There might be things I do that I say you do resonate with. Take it and use it however it works for you. Right? You may be Christian, you may be Muslim, you may be Hindu, you may not consider yourself religious, whatever, it's okay. This podcast is a space for you to cultivate your own unique journey. I am just here to share my perspective, to share certain things that resonate. Take what works, leave what doesn't. Take life with a grain of salt. So I just wanted to put that in there just so, we could be transparent, because I love each and every one of you, and, that's that. That's that. Point number 3. Openness is the gateway to spiritual expansion. Spirituality isn't about locking into one perspective. It's about unlocking yourself from limitation. The more open you are to new ideas, new people, new experiences, the more access you have to deep truths that expand your awareness of life, love, and meaning. So true. Openness is the gateway to spiritual expansion. A lot of the time, the reason people don't expand spiritually is because you lock into one perspective. You lock into one, way of living, one way of being, a certain indoctrination, right? And what you have to understand is that spirituality is meant to be open. It's not meant to be closed. Think of it. Do you think your spiritual path should feel contracted, should feel closed? Or do you think it should feel open and flowing and expansive? And that's not to say don't have values, don't have morals. That's not what I mean. Those are just foundations that you build your spirituality on. But you have to still allow room for new experiences, new ideas, new people, right? New mindsets, new perspectives, right? But when you're, locked into one way of living, one way of being, one way of thinking, I mean, you're not leaving any room for growth. Growing and being closed off, they are literally opposites. They don't really work together. And that's what a lot of people try to do. They try to grow while still being in a very, very limited and closed mindset, limited and closed way of living. And they wonder why their growth doesn't feel like growth. It doesn't feel expansive. It doesn't feel like it's working. Well, I mean, you're literally going against the growth. You're trying to grow, but you're staying in a box. Growth is not meant to be in a box. Growth is meant to be expansive. You have to be willing to step outside that box. And I know it can be so scary, man, because like I said, we have built so much of our identity in this box, right? In this programming and conditioning. So when you want to step outside that box, it's going to feel incredibly scary at first. You're going to have all of these people that are in that box with you saying that you're bugging out, you're tripping, right? You're going to have to go through a period of isolation when you step outside of that box, because when you step outside of that box, it's, like we said, it's unknown territory. You're stepping away from everything known, right? And there is that period of isolation. There is that period of solitude. But that's what this space is for. I'm really trying to help people shift their perspective on these different things that you're going to navigate in life, so that when they happen, when you have to go through them, you have a better understanding of what's going on, right? You can navigate it in a healthier and more aligned way. It says judgment restricts, curiosity expands. When you approach spiritual conversations with openness instead of needing to be right, that's where you grow, right? That's where you grow. We live in a society where when a conversation about spirituality comes up, it's about who's right versus who's wrong. That's it. It's not about openness. It's not about asking questions to understand. No. It's about I'm right, you're wrong, so I am going to speak from a place of I'm right and you're wrong. And that comes out, right? When somebody's speaking from a place of I'm right and you're wrong, you can hear it in their tone, in the energy, right? But when somebody's genuinely coming with an energy of openness, you can feel it, right? And like I said, you're not being open so that you could just take on everybody else's beliefs. No, you're being open so that you can move through life more graciously, right? So that you can allow the right things to come in, I mean, like, look at our society. I feel like we can use a little bit more openness. Like, we are so closed off as a society. I mean, it's insane. The divide, the tension, it's wild, and yes, stand on a strong foundation, right? Know who you are and stand on that. But at the same time, be open, be curious. Be willing to step into somebody else's shoes. That's what empathy is. There's a quote by Plato: the highest form of knowledge is empathy, because it takes one to suspend their ego and put themselves in somebody else's shoes. And that's so true. Empathy is so important, and we don't have enough of it because our egos are in the way, right? But empathy calls for you to remove your ego and step into somebody else's shoes, right? Not trying to, change yourself, but to understand somebody else better. Not trying to force your beliefs or ideologies onto somebody else, but just to be there with them. Sometimes that's all people need, is just somebody to be there with them through what they're going through. They don't need to hear about what you got going on and all of these different things. They just need somebody to be there with them. Even if y'all don't agree on everything, that's okay. Empathy doesn't ask for us to agree on everything. It asks for us to suspend our egos and be willing to step into somebody else's shoes, which is a very tough thing to do in today's society because we have so much divisiveness. We have so much right or wrong, rather than understanding we are all unique human beings, all unique individuals, but we're all part of the collective, right? And it's actually the uniqueness of each and every person that makes life so beautiful. I don't want to live in a world where everybody thinks the same, does the same, walks the same, talks the same. I don't. I want to experience different cultures. I want to experience different, foods and all these different beliefs. I want to experience those things because that's what brings so much richness to life. Imagine having a meal with no seasoning, man. It's just pepper. There's a meal with just chicken with pepper. No seasoning. No nothing. You're just one way of everybody got to eat chicken with pepper. That's it. No oregano, no onion powder, no garlic powder. Come on, bruh. Nah, we want the seasoning. We want the seasoning. And that's how we have to think about life. It says you don't have to agree with every belief to learn something from it. That's so true. Exposure to diverse paths enriches your own. Like adding colors to a palette you didn't know existed. Imagine trying to make a beautiful painting with one color. No, it's the ability to have multiple colors and put those colors together that make the painting beautiful. It's the same with our life. We got to stop trying to make everybody the same color and start allowing for the uniqueness of different cultures and different beliefs to come out and use that as a form of connection and not a way of disconnection and divide. And also that's such a important perspective shift, understanding that exposure to diverse path enrich your own. They don't take you away from your path. They help enrich your path. A lot of people view diving into somebody else's shoes or listening to somebody else with a different belief is a threat to your path, or it's going to, take you off of your path. But in actuality, it can enrich your path if you move into those spaces with the right energy and right perspective, right? And that's an individual thing you have to cultivate. But a lot of times we don't live in a society of free thinkers. We live in a society where people just abide by whatever is, closest to them, whatever is comfortable for them, whatever the people around them believe in, but it's like you have to cultivate your own way of thinking. You are a unique individual. How are you ever going to figure out what is for you if you can't even think for yourself? If you're constantly going to all of these things externally to affirm what you believe in or to help you, create your mindset and perspective. It's tough. It's really tough. And I speak from experience. It's tough. And I see it all the time. It is tough living that way. And hey, listen, if you want to live that way, do what you got to do, right? Do what you got to do. I'm just not going to do that. And I don't advise anybody else to do that. But we don't judge. We allow people to cultivate their own path. Keep an open mind, but not so open your brain falls out. Carl Sagan. That's a good little twist of humor right there, and wisdom. Keep an open mind, but not so open your brain falls out. You know what I mean? Like keep an open mind, but still have some foundation in your life. All right, being open-minded isn't about just lollygagging and accepting everything and doing it. No. Be open, but still have a strong foundation. Right? Still have strong values and strong morals. Right? Know who you are and let that out. Point number 4. Spirituality is found in the ordinary. Many people search for spirituality in temples, mountaintops, or books, but often it lives in the simple, in the breath, in the pause, in the gratitude of a quiet moment, or the awareness in your morning coffee. The sacred is not somewhere out there. It's right here. The sacred is not somewhere out there. It's right here. Right? But a lot of times we have this view of spirituality and all of these things as like extraordinary, and it's going to be on mountaintops, and it's going to be these grand experiences and all these things, rather than understanding that it's really in the simple day-to-day moments that we are so quick to overlook. There's so much beauty. There's so much profoundness, if that's a word, in the small moments. Right? When you really are embracing each and every step, and you're just being present and taking in life, taking in every single moment, you're going to realize that those sacred experiences aren't out there, aren't these grand things that you have to attain. They're right here in this moment. They're right here in this moment. I don't know why I just thought of the idea of like happiness. A lot of people say, I'm searching for happiness, or I just want to be happy. But I've come to realize that I'm not searching for happiness. I am just constantly trying to cultivate peace, inner peace. Happiness comes and goes. Happiness comes and goes. But peace is something that you can cultivate to where no matter what is happening in your external reality, you can still be at peace through the struggle, through the triumphs. You can still be at peace, right? Happiness is a byproduct of being in the moment, right? It's going to come. Sometimes it's going to be there, sometimes it's not. It's okay. It's just like sadness. Sometimes sadness is going to be there and sometimes it's not. But I think when you're trying to cling on to something that comes and goes, that's a very shaky foundation you're trying to build your life on, right? And a lot of people are trying to cling to being happy all of the time. So anytime sadness comes up, pain comes up, struggle comes, they feel like their whole life is falling apart, like something is wrong. Not realizing that, no, these are just things that happen as you live this life. But when you cultivate inner peace, understanding that, hey, I'm going to experience a multitude of different things, but I'm rooted in the right things. I have a strong foundation. I'm at peace with myself. Then no matter what is happening to you, what is happening around you, you will be okay. Because you understand when you're moving from an energy of inner peace, you understand that everything that is happening to you is happening for you. Truly. Everything that is happening to you is happening for you. And that takes a very profound perspective shift. But when you start living your life that way, living your life in that way with that perspective, I mean, it's inevitable it's going to change. You're going to start seeing the same experiences in a totally different light. Everything that is happening to me is happening for me. I truly believe that. Everything that is happening to me is happening for me. That's something I reiterate to myself every single day. Perspective is so important for your growth. So many people aren't able to grow into the best version of themselves because they're limited by their perspective. Because they are limited by their perspective. So much of your growth will be possible when you just shift your perspective. Life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. Life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. No such thing as a loss, only alignment. No such thing as rejection, only redirection. No such thing as failures, only lessons. No such thing as obstacles, only opportunities. Come on. No such thing as burdens, only blessings. Perspective shift. It says you don't need to escape your life to feel spiritual. You need to wake up in your life. Presence is the most potent spiritual practice. Presence is the most potent spiritual practice because when you understand that all that I need, everything that I need is in this moment, it's going to be, your life is going to change. It's about being present. We live in a society that does every and anything to get us out of the present moment. Right? We're constantly thinking about due dates, and we got rent, and we got bills, and we got these upcoming events. And then we're thinking about the past. We're dwelling on what happened, and we're thinking about, past experiences, past relationships, all these things. So we're constantly thinking in the future and in the past. And it's just taking us out of the moment. And the moment is all that you have. So imagine living your life in something that doesn't exist. What do you think that is going to cause? Frustration, internal suffering, right? So you're living your life in things that don't exist, taking yourself away from the thing that does exist, and then you're wondering why you don't feel at peace. Come on. Because true life is found in the present moment. True life is found in the present moment. And yes, it's difficult in the society we live in, but this is why you have to take control over your life. And how do you take control over your life? You start focusing all of your energy on the things that you do have control over, and you stop focusing your energy on things you don't have control over. And it helps you to be more present. It says the spiritual is often found in the human, right? Remember, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. The spiritual is often found in the human, a conversation, an emotion, a challenge. When you allow life itself to be a teacher, every moment becomes sacred. So true. When you allow life to be a teacher, every single moment becomes sacred. You can learn something from every single moment, every single person, every single conversation, every single experience, right? But you have to have the perspective that life is the greatest teacher, right? And when you move through life that way, man, will your life become infinitely better. Infinitely better. Thich Nhat Hanh says, the miracle is to walk on the earth. So true. What a miracle it is to just be walking on this earth. That's a really, really good thing to wake up every day and root yourself in. What a miracle it is to walk on this earth. What a blessing it is to wake up and have the ability to work on myself, to take steps down the path that feels true and authentic to me. What a blessing that is. What a blessing it is to experience different emotions. What a blessing it is to experience different challenges. What a blessing it is to experience different relationships. What a blessing it is, right? But because we don't have the right perspective on these things, the right perception of life, we view all of these things that are blessings as burdens. And that's how we navigate them. And when you view something as a burden, it's going to feel incredibly tough, and you're going to constantly fight it, and you're going to constantly try to run away from it. You're not going to want to navigate all of these things. You're going to cause so much restriction and friction in your life. But when you understand that everything can be a blessing with the right perspective, the way you start navigating life is going to be so much more expansive and open. It's going to be so much more beautiful. It's going to be so much more beautiful. A practice, it says, choose one daily task, like washing dishes, walking, or eating, and do it with full presence for 5 minutes. No phone, no distractions, just breath and being. That's spirituality in motion. That's so true. I was eating with my boy CJ, who is my brother, my business partner. We do content together. You guys are going to see a lot from us coming up. I was eating with him at the table, and I grabbed my phone. And he was like, hey, bro, let's eat without our phones. Just put it down. And it was in that moment, I'm like, bro, that's so beautiful, bro. One, to have a brother, that can even be aware of a moment like that. But also, two, it was just a beautiful moment to just be like, you know what? Yeah, I don't need to be on my phone every single time I eat. Let me just be present with this chicken, white rice, avocado, kimchi. What else did I have in there? And I think I just had, I think that was in eggs, right? Let me just be present with this meal. And it's just like those moments right there, man. There's so much beauty in those moments. So much beauty in those moments. Point number 5. It says, faith is trusting the unknown without needing to control it. That's so good. Spirituality isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about surrender. Life is full of mystery, and the spiritual path asks us to trust that we are being guided, even when we don't have the map. That trust, that leap into the unknown, is where miracles live. That's so true. When you leap into the unknown, you start to surrender control to the things you don't have control over. That's where miracles live right there. You're going to start seeing life unfold in ways you could have never imagined because you have finally let go. You have finally surrendered. And surrender, a lot of people have a negative connotation with surrender. Surrender isn't about sitting back not doing anything. Surrender is about surrendering control to the things you have no control over and moving through life, focusing your energy on things you do have control over and letting all the other stuff figure itself out. And you'll start to see miracles happen. You'll start to see how what you once tried to control, when you finally let it go and you just focused on the things you do have control over, things started to work themselves out in ways you could have never imagined. And it's literally going to be like, man, that's a miracle. But at the same time, it's not. This is just life now. This is just life now when you fully let go. Come on. This is just life. You don't need to have it all figured out to move forward. Often your next step is revealed after you take it. Think of it like this, right? A lot of people, right, they're standing at the edge of a cliff and they're waiting for a step to show up before they take. They're waiting for a step to show up before they take a step, right? They're waiting for a walking pad to show up before they take a step. A part of the walking pad or a block. We'll call it a block. A lot of people are standing at the edge of a cliff and they're waiting for a block to show up before they take a step. But what you fail to realize is that when you actually take the step in faith, that's when the block appears. And it's just a beautiful analogy for how we should start moving through life. A lot of people are sitting back waiting for the block to come, right? And you're just waiting and waiting and waiting, and you're praying and you're doing all these things, and you're like, oh my gosh, come on, come on, just show me the block first, show me the block first. And that's what people think faith is. That's how people walk out their faith. But when you start to understand that faith is taking the step before you see the block, your life is going to change, because you're going to realize that it's actually the act of faith that initiates the block to come up, that activates the block to come up, right? It's the step of faith, the leap of faith that actually activates the block to come up, that activates things to work out, right? Faith is that special serum, right? That very potent energy that gets things in motion. But you got to take the step first. That's why it's called faith. You got to take the step before seeing the step. That's why it's called faith. But it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And once you take the step of faith and the block appears and you step onto it and you're like, hold on. I was afraid before that, I was afraid of there not being a block, but I just realized that when I took the step of faith, a block came up. Once you take that step and you keep doing that a little bit more, it turns from faith to conviction. So now it's not I believe things are going to work out. I know things are going to work out. And once you move into conviction, it's over. Once you move into conviction is the most powerful thing. Once you are convicted that I'm convicted that I know everything in my life is going to work out. And that's how that for me, I'm speaking of me now. That's literally how I wake up every day and I walk. I am so convicted that I know everything in my life is going to work out. Everything. And that's how I move through every, experience, every environment, every season of my life. Everything is working for my highest good. And that's not a belief. That is a know. That is a conviction. I know that. And when you move with conviction, life starts to conform to you, right? Life starts to conform to that conviction, right? But you can be convicted about the wrong things. You can be convicted that you can have a strong conviction that life never works out in your favor. And what do you think you are going to get back if that's what your conviction is? That life never works out. You're going to get things that affirm that conviction, right? Understand that. You will get things that confirm your beliefs. You will get things that confirm your conviction in life. I was listening to Myron Golden this morning, and he said something so powerful. He said, when you have a desire and an expectation that are opposite of each other, your expectation will always win. A lot of people desire for a better life. A lot of people desire, to live authentically, live aligned, to do amazing things. They have these, desires, but their expectations are the exact opposite of those things. They expect things to not go their way. They expect things to not work out. And let me tell you something. When your desires and your expectations are opposites, your expectations will always win. And that's why it could be so tough. And a lot of people will be like, man, yeah, I desire these things, but it's just not meant for me. It's just not meant for me. What? It's just not meant for you. Nah, we getting that out. I got to pull this up because I wrote down another quote where he said, you don't do yourself any good by believing the things you desire are only for other people. You do yourself no good by believing the things you desire are only for other people. And when you are rooted in, lack, in the wrong mindset, in a limited perspective, and you have an expectation that things don't work out for you, things never go your way, life is going to be incredibly difficult, and, I'm going to constantly have to struggle, that's what you're going to get back. Right. And so when you have these desires over here that are saying, I want to be more, I want to do more, I want to, achieve these things and, live a authentic and aligned life. But your expectations are, these limited things over here, the expectations are always going to win. And then you're going to sit here thinking that, oh yeah, your desires are great, but they're only meant for other people. They're not meant for you. That don't do you any good to believe that your desires are meant for other people. It does you zero good. And this is something I'm going to always stand on. If you have beliefs, if you have mindsets, if you're living by ideologies that do not serve you becoming the best version of yourself, you should not keep on holding on to those things. Why would you believe in something that does not empower you? Why would you hold on to something that actually keeps you away from being your most truest, authentic self? Why would you hold on to something that causes and creates suffering in your life? And this is the crazy thing. It's like, that's why you have to cultivate an open mindset, and you have to be willing to look at what you believe, look at things that you have inside of you, and ask yourself, does this align or not? And be willing to let go of things that don't align, even if that means letting down other people or letting go relationships or, disappointing others. That's part of it. That's part of it. That's part of it. But we be so attached to what other people think that we stay in mindsets, or we stay attached to beliefs that disempower us, just because we're afraid of what other people will think if we let go of that thing. We're afraid of what the people around us will think if I decide to go down a new path, right? And I get it. Fear is real, but fear is not the enemy. It's your perspective on fear. Fear is not there to push you away. It's there to lean into. It's because you're about to step into something that is actually worthwhile, right? It's not comfortable. It's uncomfortable because you're stepping out of the known into the unknown. So be mindful of that. Be mindful of that. That's all. Here's an analogy for point number 5. It's like walking through a foggy forest with a lantern. You can't see the whole path ahead, but as you take each step, the light moves with you, revealing just enough to keep going. If you wait for the entire trail to be visible before you move, you'll stay stuck. But if you trust the light you do have, even if it's only a few feet ahead, the way unfolds with each step you take. Come on, man. The way unfolds with each step you take. That's a beautiful, beautiful analogy right there for faith. And then the last point number 6. Everyone is spiritual. It's just a matter of awareness, right? We touched on this a little bit throughout the podcast, but we're going to really dive in on this one, and this will be the end. Spirituality isn't something only a few people have. It's not reserved for the monks, for the mystics, or those who go on retreats. Every human being is spiritual, because to be alive is to be connected to something deeper than just the physical. The difference isn't whether you're spiritual. It's whether you're in tune with it or not. Some are deeply aware of that connection while others live disconnected from it. But the essence is still there, waiting to be tapped into. The essence is still there, waiting to be tapped into. It's not a matter of some people being spiritual and some people being not spiritual. It's a matter of, are you in tune with the essence that you already have within you or not? That's it. You don't become spiritual. You remember that you already are. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. You don't become spiritual. You remember that you already are. How do you remember that you already are? By tapping in to the essence that you have within yourself. Come on. That remembering can happen in a moment of gratitude, heartbreak, creativity, or stillness. It's woven into your being. It is woven into your being. Woven into your being. Come on. When people feel lost, numb, or disconnected, it's often because they have forgotten their spiritual nature. Reconnection doesn't come from achieving more. It comes from being in alignment. It's not about doing more. It's about being in alignment. It's not about getting more. It's about being in alignment. It's not about chasing. It's about being in alignment. 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 Aligned your mind. Align your body. Align your emotions. Align your habits. Align your perspective with the highest version of yourself. And what does the highest version of yourself look like? Take out a pen and a piece of paper and write it down. What would the best version of yourself be doing? How would they be thinking? How would they be feeling on an everyday basis? What perspective would they have? How would they navigate challenges in different seasons of life? Write it down and look at it and start to embody that every single day. That is how you start to move into a state of alignment. 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 Come on. Rumi says, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. I'm going to really get into this topic eventually. I don't know if it will be on this podcast or just I'm going to start streaming soon too. So all you guys that are really tapped in with the live stream and stuff, make sure you guys pull up when we get that started. But I'll make sure everybody knows, so we'll get that. But you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. If you take a drop, right, a drop of water from the ocean, right, and you look at it, right, it may look like that drop is separate from the ocean, but in actuality, it contains the same water as the ocean. So in a sense, it is still the ocean. It's just in a different form. That's how you need to view spirituality in this life. You are in this body, and in this body you contain a soul. That soul is connected to the divine, is connected to God, is connected to source. It may look like we are separate in this physical reality, but in actuality, you are connected. You are one and the same. You are made of that same essence, right? And so when you tap into that, it's going to change your life because you're going to remember who you are. And when you remember who you are, that is when you can start to be who you were meant to be in this life. So, the closing thought. Remember, my brothers and sisters, life is spiritual. Not just when you're meditating, praying, or reading sacred text, but when you're laughing, when you're grieving, growing, doubting, or just being. It's not about having answers. It's about being open to the mystery. You are not falling behind in life. You are just unfolding. And that unfolding is sacred. So, this was definitely a longer episode, but we had to get into it because life is spiritual. So I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. And remember, most importantly, to take everything with a grain of salt. I will catch you guys next week. And if you have listened to this all the way to the end of this podcast, I just want to let you know I really, really rock with you and love you so much. More than you know. So hope you have an amazing, amazing week. I'll see you guys next week. Deuces.